Hi everyone. So if you're watching the drama Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, you may have noticed that one of the main characters, Hong Du Sik, is somewhat of an avid reader. So he's always picking up books or reading by the ocean. And you might be asking yourself, what are these books? And what is the secret meaning of the books? Do they add something to the drama? So today we're going to be looking at some of these stories and what they mean in relation to the characters, as well as translating some of the Korean stories which you might not understand if you're an English viewer. So, stick around to the end of the video to see what deeper meanings that all the books in the first 6 episodes of the drama say about the storyline, and who knows, you might be able to find some clues as to Hong Du Sik's traumatic past within these books. So, I personally love when characters in dramas read books because more often than not, those books have been selected to specifically tell you more about the character, like what they believe in, what their value systems are. So, keeping this in mind, it's no surprise that the first book that Chief Hong chooses to read is a book called Waldon. The book is by an author called Henry Thoreau. The main character of the book lives a lifestyle that is so similar to Chief Hong. And even though the drama will reveal things in his dark past that will show why he made certain decisions, understanding Walden helps to explain the way he thinks and his ideas behind his actions. So I'm just going to briefly explain the story of Walden and then link it to Chief Hong in Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. In Walden, the main character chooses to live a life of simplicity as an experiment for 2 years, and he moves to the wilderness to a place called Walden Pond. He talks about how content he is living a simple life of minimalism compared to people who are imprisoned by material wealth. Above all else, the character values minimalism, independence, and self-reliance, especially in things relating to money and to relationships. This idea of being independent and self-reliant explains several things about Chief Hong. The first is why he has so many little odd jobs instead of one high-paying office job. And aside from whatever happened to him in his dark past, it's because he doesn't want to invest all his time, his energy, and basically his soul into only one company or helping only one person. Chief Hong lives on his own terms and does exactly what he wants to do depending on his mood, instead of waiting for someone to tell him what to do with the threat of money hanging over that. Being self-reliant also explains why he's really frugal and careful with money. So like the character in Walden who spends all his time accounting for every single penny that he uses, Chief Hong also spends a lot of time paying people with coins, and there's that really funny scene where he helps Hyjin out by buying snacks for the villagers, and she thinks that he's done it out of charity, but then he tells her to open her hand, and you think something nice is going to happen, but he's actually giving her a receipt to reimburse him. So, in order to live a really free life where he doesn't need to rely on anyone else and he doesn't need to lean on anyone, he is really careful with the money that he does have so that he can live a life without money, if that makes sense. And I'm going to be talking about the romantic moments in the drama in just a minute, but first I want to touch on this idea of independence and why Chief Hong was annoyed at Haijun the first time that they met. So if you felt confused about why Chief Hong was so against helping Haijin with finding her shoe even though she was asking quite nicely, it's because of the idea that she was being quite needy instead of relying on herself. She wanted him to do the work, and also because the item that she wanted him to look for was a luxury item. And Chief Hong is so against luxury items because he believes that they imprison people. Because if you want to buy luxury goods, you start to worry more about your money. You need to work longer hours to make more money so that you can buy your luxury items, and then you just become a slave to your job. This is basically the idea that's explained in Walden, and it explains a lot about their first meeting on the beach. Being independent and self-reliant does mean that Chief Hong has a habit of keeping people at arm's length. He's happy to have other people lean on him and to care for other people, but he's less comfortable leaning on others. And you really see that in the scene where the cafe owner tells him that he should find someone that he can share his burdens with, and he says that he doesn't have any burdens. And while that's about his traumas, it's also about this idea of being self reliant. So, the last point I want to make about Walden is that it talks about living a life that you want to live instead of how others want you to live. It says, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, then perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music he hears, and by doing so, man may find happiness and fulfillment. And that's pretty much the way that Chief Hong lives, in a way that he wants to live, rather than in a way that pleases other people. So let's move on to the second book, which is a book by a Korean poet called Jang Suk-ju. And when you translate the title, it's called I Buried Myself in the Arms of the Person I Parted with and Cried. It's quite a sad and tragic title, but the poem he reads from that book is actually called Kiss, and it's a beautiful poem with a very strong sense of longing, so you can tell that he has been thinking about Haijin when he reads that poem. And maybe he's also thinking about a past relationship as well, because the contrast between the name of the book and the actual poem also seems to suggest that there's something in his past holding him back from starting something with Haijin, and I'm sure we'll see that in following episodes. But back to the poem, if you're watching Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha on Netflix, they do translate one line, which is that a first kiss tastes like mud, sunlight, and roses, and it's such a beautiful line to talk about the awkwardness and beauty of a first kiss. To give you a more complete sense of the poem and to give you an idea of how Chief Hong is feeling, I'll be reading a few more lines of this poem. It's just a rough translation, but it should give you a picture of how beautiful it is. The poem goes, there are many kinds of kisses in the world. Ice, seashore clouds, black coffee, pink vine roses, raindrops in June, British breakfast, eruption of volcanoes, mild concussions, death. Kisses, kisses, kisses. A kiss from a veteran, a kiss from a lady, a kiss from a dead hero, a kiss from the dawn when a baby was born, a kiss from a lonely person in a remote house, and a kiss like a bee ringing in a chrysanthemum flower. Who am I who wants this kiss? The poem seems to say that there's lots of things in life that we can be touched by, but the one thing the poet wants to be touched by is a kiss from the person they love. And I think that's the same sentiment that Fong has in that scene as well when he thinks about the kiss from Haijin. So the last book that Fong reads in the first 6 episodes of the drama is a book called What Men Live by Leo Tolstoy, and it's actually a collection of 4 short stories. I won't talk about each one, but I will talk about the title story, which is called What Men Live By, and it's a story that has a lesson at the end and also speaks a lot to the characters of Chief Hong and Haijin. The story is about an angel called Michael, who ends up coming to Earth and looking somewhat like a beggar because he's being punished by God. In order to get the forgiveness of God, he needs to find out the answers to 3 questions. What dwells in man? What is not given to men, and what do men live by? And he finds this out when he is rescued by a man called Simon and his wife. So he sees that what dwells in man is love. And then he finds out that what is not given to men is to know what they need, because he ends up being a helper to Simon. A nobleman comes in demanding for a pair of high quality boots, but Michael makes him slippers instead because he knows that he won't need the boots, and this upsets Simon. But later in the day, the servant of the nobleman comes back and says that the nobleman has passed away and they will need slippers. So Michael can see that men do not necessarily know what's best for them. And the last thing that he finds out is that all men live not by the love of themselves, but by the love of others. It's shown through a woman who comes in with 2 daughters, and one of the daughters has a lame foot, and it is revealed that she's not the mother of the girls, but she ended up taking on this responsibility because the mother passed away and begged her to. So these 3 stories actually speak a lot to Haijin's character in that sometimes she seems a little bit judgmental, but then she's often someone that has the biggest heart and is able to reach out and help people. And it also speaks to her character in that she often doesn't really know what she needs. She probably needs more love and compassion than she needs her material goods. These are lessons that Chief Hong has tried to teach Haijin so far, and I have a feeling that he himself had to learn in a very painful way in his own past. So these are a few things that Chief Hong's book list has revealed to us about the characters and the drama. Hopefully you've liked the analysis today, and if there's anything I've missed or anything you want to add, please feel free to leave a comment and we can have a chat about it. Thanks for watching.